Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Sorry about the delay, but we're ready to proceed again, and I'll ask lead counsel to ask the next cross-examiner.
Thank you, commissioners. Up next, we have Catherine Boyd, apologies, from the Government of Newfoundland and Labrador.
No worries, Caitlin. I answered to both. Can you hear me okay?
We can, yep.
All good.
Okay. And Dr. Barter, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, perfect.
And I'll just gently remind you to pause for translation.
Sure. So Dr. Barter, I just wanted to start off by asking a couple questions about your CV. So I understand that you worked in child protection for about 30 years. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And it sounded like you started your career in Bonavista from the comments of Dr. Devine. Is that correct?
No, I started my career in Grand Bank, Newfoundland.
Okay, gotcha. And then you
October 17th, 1965.
Okay, and perhaps I'll pause there to let the translator do her work. Oh.
Dr. Barter gandaganani and deshe kukwejmena mushina nganma and deshe to segue then deshe the child protection now nustono de tas punasa the session dewa manto meu de deshe to deshe at the cent that had the century Bonavista then the Henry Chichbanatonish Grand Bank had to go October 17, 1965.
And you practiced in Newfoundland from 65 to 78. Did that include any practice in Labrador?
No, none in Labrador.
Okay. And then in 1978, you transitioned into a policy position with the government of PEI. Is that correct?
Management position, yes, 1978.
Okay. After that date, did you have any involvement with frontline social work yourself?
Indeed, I did, yes. That was part and parcel of my role as regional director.
Okay.
And that pause here.
Dat had dat had to set dat in 65 maar dat 1978 maar dat is de 7 dan de Labrador de mantago en dan de 1978 en dan de no machine gana no jingia chojma mushanka me net to santo anna no jamana bana to no chihaban to management had in 1978 to maar dan de Stado sebna dente und dann hätte ich nicht dann damit mit jemandem hätte go ninen der notjman haben to regional director nästan to go.
Okay. So you were a regional director in PEI, and that was the position you were in until you transitioned to academia in 1995. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So I want to ask you a few questions about a comment that you made in your presentation. And I'll just read the comment to you, and then I'll pause for translation, and then I guess I'll ask the follow-up question. You stated that you were talking about the Federal Act, the 2020 Federal Act. You said, in any policy manuals, CSSD work plans, or the minister's mandate letter, I didn't see any reference to this Federal Act. So I'll pause for translation there.
Yeah, then the Den he jahem sai we at the said in the he ukaja the regional director hata win wejma dan the he PI den tua me kunta mino ajet the second the he 1995 questa he magan den the he jointo ni into se han apse jo kan to kan he kan si han to kan the he federal act ni had ma chewjma te win the sho ha jo ka dan the he 2020 what did you say 2020
2020.
Okay, and then he 2020 nante he to no Mr. Papunwa then he meet Mitchman to go no dante he mission no go into the stand and mission and then he meet Mitchmasha.
It's my understanding that the CSSD policy manual does refer several times to the act you're referring to, the 2020 Act. I would bring your attention to section 1.35, which is a notice of significant measure in relation to an Indigenous child, which is specific to section 12 of the Federal Act. I'll pause there.
Then they haven't to go meet my tent to go to we haven't tent to go dante he win and on the 2020 dante he the stand motion and no Esheto that he shows more than the condition had a federal act that Magandante here section and to go 1.35 and to go Dante hen noja Emma Ayagancha at the bad Dwaganich noja.
I also understand there's reference to the focus on prevention services in section involving information sharing, collaboration, and coordination under the INU CSSD protocol. And I'll pause there.
Maganante she and on the head at the Bahamka and Dante she prevention had a jeji and jeji Nagdabahans at the Hanan he jeji can fenchugana and Dante had to Ganina. The Gundab Jim Hanagni into go chant and they win no. Tsagan Sihonista, Tsagan Nishnaguna, Mishnag.
And there's also policies involving the supporting connections with relatives or significant persons, referencing section 10 of the Act, relating to the importance of social workers to identify and initiate and maintain connections between the child or youth in care and their relatives. And I'll pause there.
Magadante Hento go in the Mishanan he tagno go and Dante he went in Dante he or was it Magan's age JGB by organs with Morgan Chagona and we had some moja and then they meet Mako at what the scanner. And then they had as you had Dante and JGB by Kuntata was a jeji ento sen magantawya jeji da de jeji to kwa hinda kun was da de kanish jeji nshwi jagnacha maganjui han shmot.
So would you agree there are references to the Act in policy manuals currently in use?
There's reference to it, yes. Yes. I know that I did say and that was a preliminary review, and that was way back. But yeah, I do know now that there was mention of the Act. My main concern, I went to the mandate letter for the minister, and that goes back before the current minister right now. And I felt that such an important piece of legislation concerning services to Indigenous children was deserving of at least mention there as well. But there was no mention in the letter of mandate to the minister. I tried yesterday to get the mandate letter for now the new minister of now the new department where child welfare is a part of 6 other departments. I'm not sure which is which right now. It was very confusing, but the mandate letter was not able to be retrieved. And I wanted to see again if that was in fact mentioned as a key. But my main concern with respect to the federal act. And the question that I have, I don't have the answer because I can't find that in documents. My question is, as services and programs to Indigenous children changed since the introduction of the 2020 Federal Act?
And you weren't in a position to speak to any stakeholders in the compiling of your report. Is that correct?
No, that's one of the limitations of my report.
Okay. And I will ask you or provide you some additional information about that. But I just wanted to establish first off, and I apologize for my cat who's been sleeping all morning very peacefully. Stick her down there. I just wanted to acknowledge that there is some reference in the policy manual, and I think you acknowledge as well in your report at page 89 that the provincial, the 2019 Children, Youth and Families Act has been amended to facilitate Innu authority over child welfare since the 2020 Act. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Pause, please.
Sure.
The mindset. Can you shorten
And if the
that
translator wants
sometime?
me to repeat anything.
Can you shorten that sometime, because I can catch up with you.
Sure. Sorry. Feel free to interrupt me.
Okay.
I first asked to confirm that there was reference to the Act in the policy manual, which I believe he did.
Yes.
This is Mishana Santos Sanitmna, and on head extended the church much Mushana at the show I know is Chejuapaha and on Teja one Shinaguhata. Mokumatuguni episode and Terchan, than the hedge got Gigant Stenibnia. Markantente here we presented the hint Tercha, and what now we took a federal act continue to ma. The dungeon is now question Mishnangana, gender stage. And on the here, but Matuganism that passage was and then they show no noja. Mishnangana, but Joshi had no new Canagandagna. And then they say, Doba, moving no Mishnangano charge yet to say, and they shake and the shows a gunja. Ego Mehunano Makanu, than the Jemusha was but the Gunani and I Mishan Gawa he and win church Mamushanka. Man the Mushi Matagunante, man Matagunan Necontel. Magantante here, and Tante here, page and Tante here 18 and the still, and Tante here Mushanagana 2019. There I could anti-average a Tante here just meet much marginal. Mushanagano and Wakino SU and Scansha told my church more.
So I had just asked about the 2019 legislation, and I can't remember now if you had confirmed that or not. I think you did.
Confirmed.
That the 2019 legislation had been amended to bring it in line with the federal act?
It's been amended. Yes. Yeah, it's been amended. And it's one of the things I mentioned as one of the advances, positive advances being made towards Indigenous self-government.
Okay. So you do acknowledge there have been some positive advancements that have taken place?
Oh, of course. Yes.
Okay. At page 7 of your report, I guess you make the statement.
Pause there. Thank you.
Sure.
Magantante gente con tam shnanagano church mountain tante 2019 ante his and no jahano gisto to no tante showing federal government acta and church mountain to show ha e hento ko jana and no te hechi adwa jeji uchmam tashot noa nchnoch magano te jahano chito chiak no new and no te hesh with mosh tante have to mosh and ganisha.
At page 7 of your report, you state the government of Newfoundland and Labrador has not taken seriously the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's principle number 9, reconciliation requires political will, joint leadership, trust building, accountability, and transparency, as well as substantial investment of resources. And I'll pause for translation.
Magandang siya nagnihintan to page 7 to at stata et sihaga anon siya na mga kasuga minute ekwenum suga minute na heno reconciliation kan siya din mga kanu jima no ja egunan ante siya kwetsa mo kuti abja.
Do you feel, given that steps have been taken, do you feel that that is the case, that the government of Newfoundland is not taking this seriously?
I do.
Okay.
I feel that both the federal government and the provincial governments across this country have not taken the Truth and Reconciliation seriously. And that, of course, is supported by the research from the Yellowhead Institute. And based upon their progress reports, they say that the reconciliation process is somewhat stagnant, and stands to reason. After 10 years, 94 recommendations were made. The first 5, being child welfare as priority, have not been acted upon.
Okay. So you have acknowledged that there have been changes made, and I've mentioned those. And you have not spoken to anyone, government officials, frontline social workers, in the compiling of your report and in arriving at that conclusion. Is that correct?
No, that was not a part of the scope of my work. My work was to review documents as I've done, and no, I did not have the opportunity, unfortunately, to do interviews, focus groups, and so on. It would have been a much richer report if I had.
Mm-hmm.
Pause,
No
please.
doubt.
Pause, please.
Magandang gente would show to my federal government. And on magandang siya to show to my Newfoundland, and on the Hichiga Shogan short nas, Jin Chita Basnas, and on the and then no reconciliation to what I go to and then the Tante Kano Jivins and Tatapunanda and Wasaja. Manoji higni niwa nante hecheji dasten janjan she to no jeji mun stagna ja me wan janjan to na chewj mayen to go magana mi jimjma ja me one to dusyan to go cha nin jeji e maga on to na ga se hinji mi jimjma khabuda annan mo no ji hen to go no Mishnana gana chiwishi sa chegana na ente sho sa he chewjma e gurina no ji man to go man no ji hen kat kat chegan to go je ji e man ji na kat ka na kat se hinja.
And again, you did not speak to any of the Innu stakeholders, such as the IRT or either of the bands in compiling your report. Is that correct?
That's correct. I only read reports.
So the IRT have tendered a report, which also encompasses other Innu stakeholders. And they describe the relationship between themselves and the government as improving, I would say. They state at page 38 of the report that government skeptics have evolved into neutral observers, then reluctant helpers, and now trusted allies and loud supporters. Do you agree that this appears to be evidence of the government, taking this seriously and working towards increased collaboration?
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. Like I said, I haven't spoken to either the Innu leadership or government officials or what have you. I've just relied on the documents and what I read in the documents. And from what I can gather, things in Newfoundland and Labrador have not changed dramatically in terms of making children and youth a priority. And I say the federal government is much the same. And, we only have to look at the current outcomes for children in Newfoundland and Labrador to realize that. Are improvements being made? Yes, probably. But I mean, why do you have a staffing crisis there in terms of the social work, protection workers?
Pause, please.
Why
Thank
is it-
you.
And then then they hire team to go ga no mai chin to go cha no they say ni sta to the set cha and they motion na ka business ma kan chin no je et to kha chen no and one they say chevch ma hinte abja et ta bo ha na ni chevch ma cha no they say why ni so to kan cha mo ko Michigan Chiquin that to conte on JG Taboy Hatonan and Tonante Hedgega Maganon se mas and on the head then he hadn't show in church mash and on the head JG in the furniture and Anante se Mishogano tight any minute to go. I want to send Tante se what no general tenante se and on the Hawaii hot and on no Trino one Chicago one she told us. Mishogam kun say him to chat and the Minister Matema to go not church ma Marganot and no gente no jamount to go the way mocha. Moganan the end to contemi Hana Missionan can to can function to the New Full and the Magan de Labrador to go. And then Jehe was such and she told Agnoga. Magan de church my hand to go the federal government to go church mash. And no te he chen fun job sante che guano no te cha no che guano no she gat kun chen te no te he en no te ka to se he cha je guano ta kai sa chen te tan te she win mo sha ni she che o ma tan wan na ko hat ne win te tan te he cha kan to mo na chen shui chi no ta mo ka no mo sha na kan te
The question is, like, why is it that there's a staffing crisis? Why is it that the advocate's office, in report after report, is suggesting and making the same recommendations, even though in other reports we're led to believe that the recommendations have been implemented? Why is it that the Child, Youth and Family Services Act, which was supported in every report that was completed, including the Turner inquiry, that it was a good piece of legislation, but it was changed? Why? And these kinds of questions lead me to believe that the government of Newfoundland and Labrador have really not progressed in a way that's realizing positive outcomes for children and youth. Why do you have the highest poverty rate in the country in Newfoundland and Labrador? Why are the children being a part of the largest population of the food banks that are being there? And the list goes on.
Translation, I guess, would be appropriate here.
Maganante hen to go che guano no she got that to go nante hen got to say she got to go. Then they had to stop when Mushan again tentation in what church ma and on the head che guano na got to go nani che guano was a chance we jack on to go and on the head che gan free the stag the stay on mission and the new chat mako matugona new che guano na pusega to nani che guano magano che guano no ni fulante maglabdo che guano no te he at the seu no is then the judge mananago ja che guano no shoka kan si hechindan de chamo ko che guano shoka kamshani no is na kwashniwa kamen punchniwa katugna bichindan de he ni na wasich anu wasa kan si wawi jag no jama kan ante je wi han mo jama kan ante je kwan kat ko na bjin no na je kwan no kan ngun kan si hen yu cha manus tem kan si tukun na kwan yu na am shwe je kwa chen tab ji hat wasin te ma kan ante chen tab ji ha kan ji ni ma ko na pe ka bjin na food bank kan si ha den de mi chum je ji tu kwa ya ba ja da je ji sta kan ja ngun ni ante he je kwa no se no nan tishne new cha je kwa na no shin na kwa shin ya.
Okay. So just to summarize, my original question had been, given that the testimony of the Innu themselves who were involved in the system seems to show an improvement in the collaboration between them and the government, is that a sign that the government does appear to be taking this seriously? And your response is no. Is that correct?
My response is I can't say for sure, based upon what's happened in the past and many of the reports that I've read. I would say that the situation is not positive. I would say that even today, there is this issue of trust and confidence. As a former Newfoundland and Labradorian, personally, based upon what I know has happened over the past number of decades, I personally don't have the trust and confidence in the Newfoundland government to make children a priority. And I have sufficient evidence over the years to explain why.
So,
like the most
but my
recent
question, sorry, we'll pause for translation there.
En ante je kwetjma na ante je en an ko ke kwetjma na ken dag nani en ante je tente je win teni ha en ante je tant afano anste hen en ante je en moshnan gno ego to ko man to ko na ante je no ka wa wi sa en ante je en fnja tente je es en je to dagen chinwa te we budget and the cha we budget mi shin sa kun en de he si han sin yu san ta che kan shu i ja gan no wen te ego no shin che ne khut to kun yu cha no ka shu ka me no pun che khwan ten de she win ni full mag labrador de che gwan no kan shin na kun wan te cha no de he kan si kan de stan ji mo shan gan no che ji我以前经常接管那这些基本都不能接管那个都能的嘛，跟我是这个是多大，你们真的是没得过那也不真的，然后这个那国中那个人接管那那些个都个啥那是都过。
Okay. Earlier in the inquiry, we heard testimony from a witness named Steve Jowdry, who was a witness with the federal government, who was doing work with the IRT. He stated that in the last 5 years, government has become supporters and helpers. I think they probably became our biggest cheerleaders in some of the work that has been going on in child and family services. And I'll pause for translation there.
Magandang heel, gejidante he wawit mo banteu enana Steve George kan hiya dagnani egdenen he chewt ma his the sebna de magante he at the khanan de he to search IRT de breda ta boniche chi wawi jinwet de na Steve George manon niun de chanon de he es chagana se todo mo chewt ma de jinweta magante de he den det här mycket mer child family services ni har jag den det jag vet inte.
So would you would not agree that I guess suggests a more positive direction in the relationship between the Innu stakeholders and the government?
I would need to hear from the Innu leaders and elders if that is in fact the case.
Okay. But you did not speak to them in the production of your report because that wasn't part of the scope, correct?
That wasn't a part of my scope of work, and unfortunately that was the case, but I had no opportunity to sit down in focus groups and conversations with groups, elders, with leaders, with government officials, with social workers, with parents, youth. I had not had that opportunity, unfortunately.
Okay, we can pause for translation there.
Magandante siya tugutsante chegwananante he siwate gata chegwa menon chino menusten chintante he chegwa etososaganacha dente he mechbehotante teonan nua manbehon tugon chino chino che jinsiwe chegwa no maganch chenno ja maganch gutgutgat sechinto manuchi hen to no katuno chechi natan chino no chechi manchino katkagat senchi chenno bud magana and no chmoch magana te hem meoneto to siento meo tante hen et hatman to ko man tante man nafanon to ko chan tante he vinchechi to hende chechi ko kwech muche kanu chechi ma te no awno no magana michma magana katka kat senchi en eto chechi to se ha matto kon te cham man nafanon te
You, in your, I guess, presentation, you suggested that one of the issues involving retention of social workers may be tied to increased policy burdens under the legislation. You cited a report from Deloitte and Touche. That was the 2007 report. Is that correct?
I believe that was the year, the organizational review report.
Okay, I'll pause for translation there.
Yeah.
Magandante he no kato ta hen mo sinan kayat ka betisna ha chekwa no nante she kana fnja antende she ni chewjma mo sinan kana dante he 2007 to ka yagunan masinan kan we bni ben to ka nante he che enante he chekwa fnji antende she mo sinan kan she wa wi ta he no chewjma
You haven't had the opportunity to interview any social workers who are currently working in the system to speak to them about, I guess, their frustrations or anything of that nature, have you?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I have not.
Well, I'll pause for translation there.
Dente gente chacha stema pensante na mustafishina na cheji matante na michma bacha non te heniste shagam no bonino ko chantante je no intende heto secha gonto ko manto comunista man to tento man te mauchendo.
You spoke to the importance of capacity building and the importance of supports for parents being available from members of their own community and how important that can be to a parent, especially a parent in crisis. Are you aware that the the IRT in collaboration with the government is now providing those supports?
I hear that there are prevention services being provided, and certainly that's a positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
But is that under the umbrella of the child protection mandate? That's my question. And I don't know if it is or it isn't, but it's prevention services. Is it really integrated into the whole child protection, child welfare service delivery model? And my from what I read, it seems to be somewhat different.
So you are aware that these services are being provided by the IRT, though. That is correct. And I'll pause for translation. Yeah.
Yep.
So I'll pause for translation there.
Okay.
Tante he abich nante he na wana we takan jabich and age we hands moja. Enonte he en emi nan mo takan chance no jen ga an shui tag no ja. Enonte he IRT abich ante chegona kawa we ta san ka be de chas mo jan no chechi ayos we tag no jan stin monteo. So we tag no just monteo gon to prevention de he de chechi kan fen che ban to no to no ache ma gente to wasana kana ka to en mon to wa ya taban an fun ya taban shina kana to wa intende je vino moko intende je vino to sech ke vino which IRT ya es ben ke vino moko to kana tante gente no una ba man yu chan tante je prevention ya de no chan chan shina kuna chechi ya kan fun chwa se che kwana okay.
You would certainly acknowledge, you're someone with a lot of experience in this field, that the child protection is a very complex area of practice from every perspective. Social workers, government, lawyers, people involved in it. There's a lot of moving parts and it can be very complex. Would you agree with that?
I think in my report, I said that it's not rocket science. It's far more complex than that.
Yeah. And I'll pause for translation.
Magda is seni imaginante anjin and is naguna genonte was the nagdoman child protection na the magans kad say cha and is nagwa one is nagwa haganja show hagab one and to when and they one shit to ganja gunte me on the jeji ella shows kapuja and et shows against Mogan was such and jen shui jaganza magan meet more than the Haitian or just given on magan did church measure.
And in your report, you make the analogy of an airplane. If an airplane is broken, if a door falls off an airplane, we ground the airplanes and we fix the problem. With the suggestion being that that's what we should be doing with child protection services in Canada right now, or in Newfoundland more particularly. You would agree. I mean, it's not as simple with child protection as it is with an airplane. We can't stop everything and start from scratch. There are issues that must be addressed on an ongoing basis. I'll pause for translation there.
Tante to go chanta Jamishan to go and Tante is your chante cabina speak banda to get you tagno sto him the banda. Ego eguna net worship on the means to get you to the no new ego Tante wasn't en jag one up mag to up magda Tante child protection here and then they show in Newfoundland. But to go and nascent to go no judginess yet worship and to go no worship and chant te non te che jim shuet ya continue na kan kancha na chapanjan na te she wan sto to kancha dan te ga pina chi gwa ni acha chiga ji no in shto mu che ji to ate non te she na ka pina che ji usha ta gwa non te she win u cha was cha gwan na mi shue ji kan chiga jim panwa 제 집에 봐 지다 봐서 산지가 안 쉬고 이다그나 문제 지간에 신하고니와 신하고 했니와.
That's the end of my question. You can just would you agree that that's a difficult analogy to make?
I guess the thought was it's like you referred to the airline, or it's with vehicles. It's the same thing. You know, you need to have trust and confidence in the public, in the parents, in the youth. You need to have that trust and confidence that services are going to be there for them in terms of support and guidance and what have you. And my question is, in my opinion, I don't think the Newfoundland government, as well as other governments across the country, as well as the federal government, have invested sufficient in, particularly for Indigenous children across the country. I don't think that the governments have invested sufficiently in developing the trust and the confidence. And when you look at the outcomes, then the evidence would suggest that that's true. I'm not sure. Like, I would have to ask the question. Personally, as a former Newfoundlander and Labradorian, I don't have the trust and confidence in the Newfoundland government to look after the best interests and the health and well-being of children. And that's based upon what I've seen over the last several decades. In fact, I would say that the Danny Williams government took the child welfare system in Newfoundland and Labrador, took it backwards more than 25 years when they replaced the Child, Youth and Family Services Act. And I believe that strongly. And the evidence is still coming forward in reports to suggest that the outcomes are not acceptable. And just doing a little search, I'm not sure what's happening back there now politically, but from what I gathered from a quick review yesterday, there's been 3 ministers of whatever department is responsible for child welfare now. There's been 3 ministers in 2025 alone, and 2025 are still with us. Where's the leadership? Where's the investment? Where's the commitment? Where's the political will when you see that kind of behavior with our vulnerable population? I can't say anything more. I don't have the trust and confidence based upon their record. And I would have to ask the frontline workers whether they do, or the public of Newfoundland, whether they do. And I listen to the media sometimes. I read the reports, and I can see that, yeah, there are concerns.
So you would acknowledge it is very important to speak to people, stakeholders, government workers, the Innu themselves, and that would be a very important, I'll say, source of data for a report such as yours.
Most
and I'll pause
definitely.
for translation there.
Maganda kayat kagu kwechma de non te chego no jeji no te yashe na finichi kawina nante he es yat chego anda to kyan to kan ka esto ka hinto ko chantante he pego no trust jeji tapo hadonan ja jeji magano te jeji enon te he wato to kan cha jeji to ka shin jeji shu he ni to kan cha je chen ni na ko ha kan cha enon te hen to ko na atkhaya wino eno mo ko chewj ma hente wino te win mo ko na mushna na no esta cha e khunta te shim te yo jan to ko man ta bo ho jan to na de he chewj ma de Newfoundland to ko ma kan de federal province enon te he si ho chen to ko e khun na te met to ko no ka ta bo ho jan to ko tante chukui to ko nan to ko na jeji ya kan cha ta to no ji kan chen che kwan na ko ha chen sa me e ko no she no pa hen to ko na me san ka kan skan ta sta ko na cha che wo ma to ko Mattugunung tante he chugunung tugunante he tanjaganish nagatoin magnut juasaja. Maganante he tajaganish tutumuja. Meon matugununiwa. Ego mishuganin tabu he niwan tabu hante na chivajmanante he cantante we bitnuish nafanuniwa. Pasihin magujawan wajiganuniwa gat yawnyu yatabaya bitnafanuniwa. Tante hin mishnanagnish mejanjeji chojma menusteno tabu mokweno menafanwa. Tante metanwana wenwa tanwana etakach wenwa jeji mamonoji asa. No yacha nafanaja no wasje nagtop nagnacha. Jeji kan nafanaja jegano menaponacha. Naunte niwa Dende he shabanji nishnaguniwa enante he kanisha kan siwancha enante he wina dende he beba chojma shwina jeji mushnan kanante he kan siwet ni chojma chasha 2025 ne new cha cha nastodin chojma uchin cha enante he no jihasin te mukwa ni no new cha ngach Chikawi to nibani na ni chana jeji menot na menui to sem to na cha makas jeji yach en wan is na kwatsa dit en ot khaya no apa henta bachni tante jenis ka hets magan sin tante het pa jmuni sha magana mishan ka na bani jita ba heni na una pa mani chanta at the stage no ta no na church ma win jet ni to ta Mentabu hana ni te sa na jagwa one so de hwenin menjita we on de tante na si hano ni jagwa ni chakwa te kan fanjini ni tante tante he win no cha en wan jente he ni sta jaga wi ta ban jeji na si hwe cha no ba he na ba jini cha mi shana ka an cha kan shin to ni mo ga no ke che ma ba ga den de he ta no na cha kan she to ma kuna pampanoniwa enante he kamen punaja mishe to punoni chane sna kwashnya wa batman ni
Oh, sorry, I just need 1 second there. I don't have any further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. This is an appropriate time to have a little health break of about 10 minutes. We'll see you back at in this location at 2:30. Thank you very much.